Hi students, welcome back to geology. Today we are going to take a deep dive into the mystery of moving continents. So this is going to be our intro to continental drift and plate tectonics. This is one of 7 lectures you'll watch, but don't worry, they're all on the shorter end. They're not 30-minute lectures. So let's get into it. First things first, I want you in your notes to think about why the earth might have mountains and valleys. So take a minute to think about it. If there's somebody around that you can discuss with, feel free to do that. But write down your response. Why do you think the earth has mountains and valleys? And hopefully by the end of these lectures, you'll be able to answer this question. So starting off, what is the geosphere? So the geosphere is everything that encompasses Earth. So everything that's happening from the surface below, including all of the rocks, the minerals, the landforms, and any of the processes that form what we see today. So anything from the surface above, we know as the atmosphere. So we're working surface down, which is the geosphere. So this is going to include continental drift, which is what this particular video will cover. And then tectonic plates will be the next several videos, including layers of the Earth. So early thoughts on Earth's geosphere was that it was just shrinking. And that's where a lot of the mountains and valleys came from, was just from this wrinkling, from the shrinking and contraction of the Earth after it was formed. So 4.6 billion years ago, the Earth formed and began cooling from that point. And it was surmised that things were shrinking and crinkling and wrinkling as they shrank. And that's where our mountains and valleys came from. But there were some early scientists that didn't really believe that. So this is the first preliminary work for continental drift was early continental fit. And this was from Antonio Snyder in 1858. He was looking at the puzzle piece fit initially, where South America looks like it fits in with Africa. So today we know that the Atlantic Ocean separates South America and Africa. But at one point in time, some of these really early scientists believed that they could have been connected. And then he started also looking at maybe some matching fossils, and that's where Alfred Wegener started to pick up. So Alfred Wegener in about 1910 really started expanding Snyder's work and looking at things a little bit differently. He had lots of trips to Greenland, looking at ice thickness, trying to find fossils on different continents. He unfortunately did not make it past his last trip to Greenland, but he had a lot of works put together that supported this theory of continental drift. And so we'll talk about his 4 pieces of evidence in the next couple of slides. Okay, so his first piece of evidence was that continental fit. So Snyder looked at the puzzle piece, but it was more general. We weren't looking at where the continental shelves were and just exactly how they would fit together and where outside of South America and Africa things would kind of fit. And that's what Alfred Wegener was working on. He synthesized that there was a large amount of data in one place, and he put it all together and figured out what we call now Pangea would have looked like many years ago. And he found much better fit when he looked at coastlines and the continental shelf all fitting together. The next piece of evidence that he had was fossils. So, for example, there were some fossils known as a mosasaur, which is a primitive aquatic reptile that was found on both Africa and South America. And mosasaur would not have been able to swim these vast oceans that we know separate Africa and South America today. So it's surmised that there might have been a land bridge there, and we'll talk about that in a second, where those land bridges might have come from, according to opposers to Wagner's work. There's a couple of other fossils which are in this image as well. Some of them are plants. So we have a plant fossil there as an example that was found on every single one of these continents: Australia, Antarctica, India, Africa, and South America. And we know that plants need to produce pollen, and the pollen needs to be picked up by the wind, and then the wind takes it elsewhere. Now, taking it across vast oceans is not likely. So it was more likely that these land masses were connected. Glaciers were the third piece of evidence from Alfred Wegener's work, and he looked at some glacial deposits that were found in Antarctica, Africa, South America, and Australia, and India, of course. And they were all about the same age. So they were about 300 million years old. And that gave good indication that all of these land masses must have been over the South Pole at one point in time in order for glaciers to form, because some of these land masses, Africa and South America, of course, are near the equator. And the equator does not have the capabilities. It's too hot for glaciers to exist. Some other evidence that they see that indicates that there was glaciation in these areas were something called glacial striations, which are scratches in the bedrock. And this picture here is a good description or good visual for you to see what those scratches would look like. So as a glacier moves over a landscape, it does pick up little rocks and things, and then those rocks then scratch the existing landscape and create these grooves, which we call glacial striations. And the final tipping point were the rocks. So fragments of old mountain belts that were between 400 and 450 million years old were found on separate continents. And these pieces of folded mountain belts were found in Greenland, Canada, Ireland, England, Scotland, and Scandinavia, which we know are not all connected. And these land masses must have assembled during the same mountain building event, which we also call an orogeny. That word's not on the slides, but it's on the diagram there. So orogeny means a mountain building event. And when that occurs, those rocks are going to be of the same origin and the same age. And if that is found on different continents, you can surmise that they were built during the same event while they were connected. All right, so our 4 pieces of evidence from Alfred Wegener are puzzle piece, fossil evidence, rock evidence, and then climate or glacial evidence. Okay, so he had these really strong pieces of evidence to indicate that something was happening, things were moving, but he didn't have the how. He didn't know how these things were moving away and towards each other. And so the missing mechanism is what we're going to talk about in the next couple of videos. But it was assumed for decades that his work indicated that, yes, the continents move, but they must just plow through the oceans. And the next couple of videos, like I said, we will disprove that. Even though Alfred Wegener had really good pieces of evidence, he did have some opposition. It was proposed by opposers that transatlantic or transoceanic, not just the Atlantic, land bridges would have allowed animals and plants to move between continents, and land bridges must have just eroded away, leaving the continents separated by these oceans. But the problem with this hypothesis is that the scale at which that land mass must have been it's not possible that that much had eroded away. It would have to be tall enough and long enough to stretch across this broad, deep ocean that then is what we see today as the Atlantic. All right, so some final thoughts. In your notes, write down 2 pieces of evidence Alfred Wegener used and 1 reason scientists rejected his idea. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.